Hi, I'm Carol Kauffman, and we've been asked by Global Gurus 30 to talk about things that we've learned during COVID. And I'm going to talk about something that I'm not hearing people talk about. So I'm Carol Kauffman, and I teach at Harvard. I'm a leadership coach and was one of the founders of the Institute of Coaching. So I have two stories that I'd like to tell you about. I was talking to one of my leaders, and as he was describing not understanding why people were so afraid of COVID, after all, our parents and grandparents, we lived through the war and blah, blah, blah. And he's just a nice guy. And I'm not sure why he was being so incredibly judgmental of people being afraid. And particularly a couple of people that worked for him that were sort of like, oh my. And it was interesting. So I started thinking, and one of the questions I asked him is, do you remember what you did in your 20s that you loved? And what it was is he flew jets for fun. So I said, what do you imagine the impact on your nervous system is that you were flying jets for so long? And he then eventually put it together that he had inoculated himself in a big way from fear his whole life. And then he got that he doesn't experience fear the way we do. And he then goes, yeah, I used to fly him through the trees for fun. And I'm like, so basically, you need to realize you're not the normal one. And you have to appreciate that when you're starting to be judgmental of others that are in fear, that maybe that has something to do with you and not them. Now, this is a good guy. And so he started then thinking about how could he step into more kindness and get that he didn't get other people's fear, but that had to do with him. Okay, so oddly enough, like it's 2 hours later, and I'm talking with this guy who's right at the forefront of everything that's happening right now, calls from Trump and Burks and, running around, really working on saving lives. He's an MD and one of the leaders of Big Pharma, very committed to seeing, what can we do to help now? And living a life that I can hardly believe. We've been talking a ton, and he's always pacing. So I'm seeing him like going round and round and around the house as we're talking. And he's managing so many things. And I just said, I'll call him John. How do you do this? How are you okay? And he's like, I don't know. And he is literally managing things that are making other people crumble. And I said, well, did you get trained in some way to withstand a kind of pressure that most people don't? And he's like, no, I don't think so. And then he was, well, of course there was when I was an ER doc. And I said, well, what about that? He goes, well, I just loved when people coded. I'm thinking, excuse me? And he goes, I'm like, why? And he said, well, because, there'd be craziness and chaos and nobody knew what to do. And I would walk in there and I just get calm under pressure. And I would just go in there, I would help everybody. We'd intubate them, we'd do the electric shocks. And, the guy's life was saved because I was calm. He then clearly put it together. And then I was saying, well, are you feeling at all judgmental of people? Now, I said that after he had said, some people are really stepping up and it's great, but others are just throwing up their hands and they're not stepping up. And I could hear the latent disdain. So I basically said, I'm hearing a little bit of disdain in how you're talking. Do you think that's something you better look at? Because maybe you are equipped in a different way than other people. And for him, again, good-hearted guy. And he was like, oh my God, you are right. And I just haven't had time to talk to them yet. He says, thank goodness, I'm talking to my HR partner in 2 minutes. I think we're going to bring this up. So this is something that we're not talking about, that some of us are really working hard on managing our fear. And we have to work with our clients on that as CEOs are just hitting the wall now. Others who are doing really well are going to have to manage the way they are judging those that are being paralyzed, or that's the way they see it. So that's one thing I am learning, that, crisis brings out an exaggerated version of who we are. So we better know who we are, be aware of our defaults, but also be aware of some of this silent stuff going on so that we can help ourselves and others and that subset of people that have to deal with their being judging of fear and not managing their own fear.